you know that all the forwards in the All Blacks are obese? Did you know that all the backs in the All Blacks are overweight? That's what the BMI index tells us about our top sports people.
The thing with eating disorders is that it's not like being an alcoholic or being a drug addict or anything. It's actually a fundamental, it's an essential part of life to eat.
My grandmother would always come and grab my arms and jiggle them, and she was quite weight conscious, and she'd always say, oh, you're getting a bit podgy, or she'd be like that with my sisters and me, and I hated it.
The Eating Difficulties Education Network is an organisation providing information, support and referrals for people facing eating difficulties. Tackling these issues is Dr Marie Burns.
I have worked at Eden about 8 years. I've been in the coordination role for the last 3 years, I think. I've got an academic background. I've got a PhD in psychology, and I've done some research on the experience of bulimia for New Zealand women. I interviewed women who were experiencing bulimia, and I also talked to health professionals working in the field, and I was interested in finding out how they understood their experiences and what they saw to be the causes and what was helpful in terms of recovery.
My life has been full. I've done heaps of things. I grew up in Wellington, loving family, brilliant parents. In terms of my eating disorder or my eating issues, I've had them for about 14 years, since I was about 17. I actually got a criminology degree, and then I went overseas and started working for a publishing company. In 2006, I was losing concentration at work. My weight was so low I couldn't function properly. I was depressed. I kind of was confused, and I really didn't know, and overwhelmed, and I didn't know where to turn. Yeah, that was difficult, and I think it was when my mum just came into me one day and gave me a big hug, and I got very teary-eyed, and she said, Kate, just whatever you do, get some help, in my ear. And that's when I thought, I have to get some help. And that's when I started with a therapist in Tauranga, and I only saw her twice.
A big part of what disordered eating creates for people is isolation. And so being isolated from support and other people that you can talk to about the problem, is a big part of the maintenance of the problem, really. There's a whole host of factors that contribute to eating disorders, including genetic factors, life experiences, traumatic experiences, experiences of abuse, using eating as a method of control in one's life.
Eden was formed in 1990 as a drop-in service for individuals with eating difficulties. Since then, it has shifted its focus to prevention and health promotion.
At the moment, we have about 5 staff members sharing just a couple of FTEs, full-time equivalents, which is a big challenge. I think we're very much interested in providing early intervention services for people, in providing services that clients feel are empowering.
Victoria Marsden has dedicated her life to counselling, using her own personal experience as a platform in which to advise others.
I've always had an interest in having some involvement with Eden, but was quite definite in that being in a counselling role.
Hi. Is this your first time to Eden?
Yeah.
I used to be a teacher at a secondary school. I had trouble with students who were expected to achieve at the same level as other students when they had very difficult home lives. So that steered me down the path of counselling, and then through personal experiences with eating difficulties.
Victoria specialises in narrative therapy to help her patients clearly define the source of their eating disorder.
Some of the key factors or aspects of narrative therapy are that we separate the person from the problem. So instead of looking at eating difficulties as being, say, a personality flaw or a personal defect, we look at eating difficulties as being significantly influenced by cultural context.
Things probably started for me about intermediate age, when I started becoming aware of my body image and comparing it with my friends. I went on my first diet when I was probably 15 or 16, and that was encouraged by my boyfriend at the time, his mother. I said to her, I think I need to go on a diet, and she said, I think you're right. I joined a diet club for the first time, and I think that was probably when I started learning to binge. I'd be starving myself beforehand to make sure I lost something that week, because it was really embarrassing if you didn't lose anything.
We know that when people diet, they're more likely to binge eat, to fall off the wagon of the diet, if you like, and then they get back on the diet because of the guilt, and then the cycle goes on. Very unhealthy. You know, that's a very disordered way to eat.
Got to the stage where I'd be so hungry at my meetings that I'd actually have my binge in the car waiting for me. So I'd get out to the car and eat as much as I could, or I'd go home that night and pig out, basically eat as much as I could and then start again the next day.
We want to encourage people to get back to a relationship with their body that is based on appreciation and intuitive eating, responding to the body's cues rather than eating according to a prescriptive diet.
It's seen as the right thing to do, to go on a diet and be healthy. But I think you're really doing a lot more damage than you realise, especially if your eating issues are emotional.
Making sense of her eating issues was problematic for Kate. Suffering from depression, she sought any help possible.
I went to a nutritionist and she recommended that I access services in Auckland. And when I looked around, there was only Auckland. Auckland was the only place to come.
There is a clinical service in Auckland which deals with people who are acutely unwell and who do have a diagnosis, a clinical diagnosis of either anorexia or bulimia nervosa. That service is totally oversubscribed and there are long waiting lists, and people have to be quite unwell to access that service.
I want my life to be better, I want to be healthy, I want to be happy. So I had to come up to Auckland. So I had to leave my partner, my job and everything. I went and had an informal chat with Marie, who was very comforting, I think, to be able to start talking about my issues.
It can be soul destroying for someone to put their hand up and say, look, I'm really struggling with a problem.
Didn't quite know where to start. I thought I was a walking, talking eating disorder. So yeah, that was very difficult.
At Eden, we will see anybody who has for themselves identified and named a problem in this area.
I was able to talk about it being the eating disorder. I think we called it the gremlin or ED or Ed or Eddie or some, everyone has a different name for it.
We would look at what influences anorexia or bulimia would be having on the person's life, how they felt about that, and what they possess that might be able to be harnessed and directed against the eating difficulty.
I spent 6 months with Eden. Eden sort of helped me start working through my issues, helped me come to terms with thinking about the eating disorder as something separate, like I disassociated myself from it in order to accept that that's what I was dealing with.
Again, at Eden, we're very keen to avoid pathologising individuals. We're not interested in pointing the finger at individuals and saying there's something wrong with you. We're very interested in contextualising the problem. What's going on in your environment that's making this make sense?